long story short, I got started wholesaling in 2005. I worked in the corporate finance world, quickly realized that working for somebody was not for me. And I had big goals, and I wanted to get into real estate. I had been reading a lot of books while traveling from city to city in Europe. I was backpacking.
Oh, wow.
The one common denominator was I felt like all the successful people that I was reading books about had large real estate holdings. So here's the irony. I got into real estate because ultimately I wanted cash flow and all the great benefits that real estate provides for us. I really wanted time freedom. And yet for 15 years, I focused on wholesaling, which was fantastic in many ways because it was, as you know, it's a cash generating business. The mistake I made, David, was it wasn't until about 12 years into my journey where I started to take that active earned income and I started focusing on assets that produce cash flow, right? So I got caught in that hamster wheel, the rat race of making a bunch of money wholesaling, but then not taking that active income and putting it into cash flowing producing assets. So I started buying rentals in 2017. And I quickly realized that for me, while yes, I can achieve cash flow and ultimately build wealth with rentals, it felt like a pretty slow and hard grind. And I didn't like that I didn't have economies of scale and I had to deal with tenants and toilets and all that kind of stuff. And I happened to be coaching somebody who owned a storage facility. This was back in 2018, 2019. And I got an inside look into the magic of that asset class, the opposite of what I experienced with rentals, right? I wasn't dealing with tenants and toilets and trash. Yeah. And it was just it's an asset class that can provide, it's pretty simple to run and manage. I've done quite a few rehabs, but I don't really enjoy them. And in storage, it's low repairs and maintenance. And so it opened my eyes to that asset class. And when COVID came, it was a blessing in disguise because I had already decided that after 15 years, I was in certain ways burnt out with wholesaling. My overhead at that point had ballooned to about $40,000 to $45,000 a month. And I said, man, I feel like I've spent all this time building a business that I don't believe is sellable, at least not the way that I built it, if I'm being honest. And I got tired of chasing deals, man. So late 2020, I committed myself to storage. And I've been doing it for the last 4 years now. So.
Yeah, I think that's important, and that's a hard thing for somebody that's in that kind of sucked into that hustle culture world of wholesaling. It's great money, but it will just stop. If you stop tomorrow or you want to go on vacation, it generally it doesn't continue. There's no revenue past the day where you're grinding it out. So that's kind of what we alluded to in the opener here a little bit, was there has to be that next step, right? And then how do you choose what that next step is? Because everybody likes something a little different, right? Maybe you want to do land development, maybe whatever it is. But I'm always been fascinated by self-storage, right? Because of no tenants, no trash, no toilets. As a guy who has 100 rentals, that was a struggle when I was self-managing. So was it nerve-wracking to kind of make that leap? Because it feels like you're jumping across the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, it does. And no, if I'm being just really straight up with you, it wasn't, because similar to when I made the decision to leave my corporate job and get into real estate and start my own business, the pain of not changing was greater than the fear of uncertainty of like bridging that gap and figuring it out. So I think one of the things that has really served me, that I'm hoping to convey to people to try to have a little bit more of, is I tend to just be more of a ready, fire, aim, right? Like I think when you get clarity about what you want and why you want it, like I feel like regret is one of the biggest and worst things somebody can live with. Is I never wanted to get later on in life and say, man, I regret doing this or not doing that. And so, yeah, man, I mentally burned the ships and I said, hey, I'm shutting this thing down, even though it's profitable. I asked myself one question. I said, if I'm still operating this wholesaling business 12 months from now, how would that make me feel? And in my gut, I was like, this is just no longer aligned with my mission and my purpose and my goals long-term. So I felt, and I knew that after doing a lot of research into the asset class, that it was here to stay.